Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. Stock markets end the day and the week with losses. The sensex and the nifty down 1% this week. IT stocks under pressure even as bank stocks buck the trend. Oil prices bounce back as the closure of a major Canada to US crude pipeline disrupts supply, but prices continue to hover around yearly lows amidst concerns over slowing demand. HCL Tech shares slumped 7% in trade after the management indicates that its growth this fiscal could be at the lower end of the 13.5 to 14.5% band. A higher than anticipated furloughs in BFSI, high-tech and telecom verticals have driven down the revision. The Union government seeks Parliament's nod to spend an additional 3.2 lakh crore rupees in the first supplementary demand for grants with an additional 1 lakh crore rupees. Fertilizer subsidy bill hits a record high of more than 2 lakh crore rupees.
And it's not like a golden, just for that golden hen, and you just cut it out one day.
The 16 December deadline for receiving preliminary bids for IDBI Bank privatization to be extended to January next year. DPAM Secretary Tuhin Kanta Pandey tells CNBC-TV18 the government has already raised 62,000 crore rupees, including dividends of 34,000 crores.
It may not be necessary or may not be healthy for public sector to keep expanding the capital investment at the same pace.
CA Anantha Nageshwaran nudges the private sector to ramp up investments, asserts that corporate sector balance sheets are healthy now and it's time to take bets, warns of rising cost of capital if the public sector keeps investing at the same pace. The proposed bill on SEZ reforms is unlikely to be tabled in the winter session of Parliament. Sources tell us that the bill is stuck due to differences between Finance and Commerce ministries. The Finance Ministry is not on board with the tax incentives being proposed under the new bill. The US monopoly regulator challenges Microsoft's proposed $69 billion acquisition of video game publisher Activision Blizzard in court, claims the acquisition can harm competition in the gaming industry. This is a major attempt by the Biden administration to curtail the power of big tech.
I don't think that it's the right thing to put India against China. I think what goes on in India and China could very well be operating in a separate world.
AstraZeneca's global chairman Leif Johansson says that he is aware that India has the capability of manufacturing medicines and even vaccines for the world, but says it would be unfair to pit the nation against China, adding that industry, government and academia need to find ways to cooperate on innovation. Paytm shares rally as the company's board will meet next week to consider a buyback. The proposed move comes after the stock declines to a fourth of its IPO price, sparking a debate. Online marketplace Snapdeal defers its plans to launch an IPO, withdraws papers filed with SEBI for a 1,200 crore rupee IPO, citing prevailing market conditions. Tamil Nadu braces for Cyclone Mandous as it intensifies into a severe storm. Heavy rains lash parts of the state. Schools and colleges are closed across 27 districts. The cyclone is likely to make landfall near the Chennai coast after midnight. Well, let's start with the stock market action. Benchmark indices ending in the red following a volatile session. The sensex slipped over 380 points today and the nifty was lower by 113 points. The market also snapped a two-week winning streak with both the sensex and the nifty falling 1% each this week. IT stocks, a major drag on the index. And speaking of IT, HCL Tech shares plunging 7% in trade. It's the steepest intraday slide since January. This after management cut down its FY23 growth guidance. The company's indicated that its growth this fiscal could be at the lower end of the 13.5% to 14.5% band. Rima joins us with HCL Tech's downward guidance. Rima, what exactly seems to be the problem here?
Thanks for that. So the street is spooked because just 2 months ago, HCL Tech had actually revised its guidance higher. So the question is, what changed in 2 months that the company has now got to guide down? Well, they said that we are seeing higher than anticipated furloughs in Q3 in 3 key verticals. One is BFSI, the second is high-tech, and the third one is telecom. And these 3 verticals contribute nearly 50% of the industry revenue. So we've just quickly analyzed the revenue contribution of these 3 impacted verticals that HCL Tech has called out as of the revenue contribution to the other large cap as well as mid cap IT companies, and you would see it's roughly 45 to 50%. So for Infi, BFSI contributes about 30%, high tech is about 8%, while telecom is 12%. It totally adds up to 50%. For TCS, BFSI itself contributes close to about 32%, and for Wipro, BFSI contributes about 35%, and the balance two sectors, high tech and telecom, roughly adds up to about 10 to 15%. Even in the mid-cap space, these sectors have an extraordinary contribution, and these companies are highly dependent on clients in these three verticals. So emphasis LTI and Mindtree. Eventually, of course, LTI and Mindtree is going to be merged from here on, but right now, as of the September quarter, you would see that BFSI, high tech, telecom, and media, because that's how they club it, would roughly contribute about 60% to their overall revenues. So what HCL Tech has to caution has implications for the rest of the IT companies, and we're going to be watching very carefully what the companies have to say in the run-up to their Q3 numbers.
Yes, we are going to have to watch what other companies may say. Will they follow what HCL Tech has done? Are we looking at downward revisions for other companies as well? Rima, many thanks for joining us. Now, the war in Ukraine has burnt a big hole in the union government's pockets. The fertilizer subsidy for this financial year has crossed 2 lakh crore rupees, which is an all-time high. The Finance Ministry tabled a supplementary demand for grants before Parliament, seeking to spend an additional 3.2 lakh crore rupees. Sapna joins us now with a breakup of the numbers. Sapna, fertilizer and food subsidy forming a bulk of the supplementary demand from the government.
Well, certainly it's a fertilizer subsidy which is now at a record high. The current financial outgo is likely to be around 2.14 lakh crore. The government has sought an additionality of over 1 lakh crore from the Parliament in the first supplementary demands for grants, against the budget estimate of around 1 lakh crore. Of course, this entire, subsidy bill has been extremely high, also mainly because of the Ukraine impact, the Ukraine war impact. Fertilizer prices globally have been on the rise and have been very high, especially the first half of the current financial year, and that is now reflected in a higher subsidy outgo. That's one. Second, of course, in terms of the food subsidy, 80,000 crores has been sought by the government in terms of additional expenditure from the Parliament. 60,000 crores within that is dedicated towards the PMGKAY, that tab is expected to be somewhere around 1.20 to 1.30 lakh crore in terms of the additionality on PMGKY in this year. So maybe around 50 to 60,000 crores could be the rest of the amount that the government will be giving out at the time of the revised estimates of the budget. The third, of course, is the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Rural, 28,000 crores additional over there, 22,000 crores for OMCs in terms of the LPG losses. Again, 16,000 crores over that sought for Manrega. So it's a big supplementary, so to speak, and the revenue expenditure, is a major part of the outgo. But in terms of the overall fiscal impact, we are given to understand that this may not really impact the deficit in a major way because revenue is expected to be extremely buoyant in the current year.
Sapna, many thanks. Now, the new bill on SEZ reforms may not be tabled in the ongoing winter session of Parliament. In fact, it will not be tabled. We learn from sources the bill is stuck due to differences between the Finance and Commerce Ministries. Timsy joins us now with more. Timsy, this was promised by the Finance Minister in the budget. It was supposed to come to the session last session. It didn't happen. It's not slated to be taken up in this session either. What is the problem?
Well, as you rightly said, it was a budget announcement, a budget promise that Finance Minister made to revamp the SEZ units, and that was under the Desh bill. And now what we get to learn from our sources is that the new SEZ bill or the Desh bill is stuck over differences between Commerce and Finance Ministries. And rather the main bone of contention is the taxation. What should be the tax incentives that the government can offer to units which will be now set up under these new SEZs? And that is something what Direct Tax Department, to be precise, CBDT, is unable to offer as per the demands of Commerce Ministry, because the Direct Tax Department feels that the current corporate tax relaxations that have been given are good enough for any unit, any corporate or any manufacturing unit to be set up in the country, whether under SEZ or non-SEZ. That is it that they can offer. They would not want dual taxation system in the country. And to avoid that, they have clearly written back to Commerce Ministry, to which Commerce Ministry is not agreeing. And thus, they are currently at go-ahead. When it comes to whether Revenue Department's comments have been well received by Commerce Ministry, well, they have not. However, Commerce Ministry has still not got back to Revenue Department on their comments, and that is where the bill is stuck. So what we are hearing from sources, that whether this will be stable or not, well, it seems unlikely, at least in the winter session.
All right, Timsy, many thanks for joining us. The Chief Economic Advisor, Anant Nageshwaran, has said that corporate sector's balance sheets are healthy and has nudged corporate India to ramp up capital expenditure. Nageshwaran also warned of rising cost of capital and believes that if this continues, it could keep the cost of capital high if the public sector keeps investing at the same pace.
In the corporate sector are very healthy balance sheets, very healthy bottom line, and a financial system, both banking and non-banking, that is repaired, ready to lend, and the corporate sector is ready to borrow. We see that in the credit growth numbers today. So therefore, it may not be necessary or may not be healthy for public sector to keep expanding the capital investment at the same pace. Capital expenditure has to continue to increase, but not at the same pace, because we should not only be not crowding out the private sector, but also ensuring that the combined investment spending by the public and the private sector should not drive up the cost of capital too much for the economy.
Now, the government has decided to extend the 16 December deadline for receiving preliminary bids for IDBI Bank's privatization to January, this on the request of potential suitors. The invitation of expressions of interest for Concor could slip into January as well. DPAM Secretary Tuhin Kanta Pandey told CNBC-TV18 the government has already raised 62,000 crore rupees, including dividends of 34,000 crores.
Divestments is an ongoing thing, and as said that divestments are of two kinds. One is that we have minority stake sales in the market, some of the listed companies. And I think there we have a clear stance of be very mindful, like any prudent thing of doing a value-based divestments rather than just to chase a target. We know that we have got minority investors in mind. We know that those have investors. So therefore, it's not a question of just, coming every other day and diluting whatever we have. And it's not like a golden, just for that golden hen, and, you just cut it out one day. We have got actually 62,000 crores of resources already raised this year.
That is the DPAM Secretary. On to another exclusive today. British pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca says it's delivered 3 billion COVID vaccine doses across the world. Speaking exclusively to CNBC-TV18, the global chairman of AstraZeneca, Leif Johansson, stressed on the need to fund research in the pharma space. He urged the Indian government to find new ways to cooperate for more innovation and emphasized on the requirement to generate revenue to fund future vaccines and medicines. Listen in.
There is an opportunity to think differently at different unique times. We felt that this pandemic was unique enough to justify a not-for-profit decision, but also a very strong spreading of technology and technology transfer into many countries. It's also important to recognize that industry needs to be able to generate revenue to be able to fund research for future medicines. We have certainly learned that there is a capability and a sophisticated capability here in India to be able to produce vaccines and even medicines for the world. I don't think that it's the right thing to put India against China. I think what goes on in India and China could very well be operating in a separate world, and I think we should look at each country individually.
Tamil Nadu is bracing for heavy rainfall as Cyclone Mandous is expected to make landfall near Mahabalipuram around midnight. Schools and colleges have been shut in 6 districts. The NDRF teams have been deployed in several districts as well. Jude Sanet joins us live from Chennai. Jude, preparation to try and ensure that there is less damage, but what can you update us on at this point in time?
Well, even as all these preparations are underway, the good news is the fact that the IMD has downgraded Mandous, from a very severe cyclonic storm to merely a cyclonic storm that's expected to cross the Tamil Nadu coast between midnight and early hours of Saturday morning. That's of course later tonight, even as Chennai and parts of Tamil Nadu and the southern Andhra coast are in all preparation to brace for this cyclonic storm itself. In fact, in my frame you can see we're at the Mahabalipuram coastline here, and that's the Shore Temple in your background, the historic one at that, and the sea is quite rough. Grey skies and grey seas have pretty much been the prevailing image of the day, even as the local weather station has predicted moderate to heavy rainfall with heavy winds through the greater part of today itself. As you mentioned, schools have been shut. A team of 12 teams of NDRF personnel have been put on standby. They've been numbering to up to 400, even as Tamil Nadu, which remember has a cyclonic storm almost every year, has been bracing for this one. All expected to make landfall, of course, a little later in the evening. In fact, closer to midnight is what we hear. But more importantly, what we are also given to understand is that the Corporation of Chennai has, taken all steps to ensure that safety is assured pretty much by issuing that advisory to residents of the city to not venture after noon time today, which is pretty much why you see beaches like this one completely deserted, even as NDRF personnel have been on standby and, hoping to ensure that they save the city and its surroundings from the worst. But the fact remains that even as the cyclone has been downgraded from very severe to merely a cyclonic storm, one would hope that the worst does not quite happen and that more or less the city is spared. At least that's the hope going forward. But Mandous expected to make landfall as merely a cyclonic storm, not, thankfully, a very severe one.
Well, that certainly is the silver lining at this point in time. Let's hope everyone stays safe. Jude, many thanks for joining us. A new chapter in the ongoing saga between BharatPe and its former MD and co-founder Ashnir Grover. The fintech unicorn has filed arbitration proceedings against Grover in order to claw back his restricted shareholding and founder title. Ritu joins us now with more. Ritu, take us through what has been filed as part of this arbitration process.
Well, Shireen, that's right. After filing a lengthy civil suit and a criminal complaint at the EOW, it is now arbitration proceedings that BharatPe has initiated against its founder, Ashnir Grover, in the Singapore International Arbitration Center. And this arbitration appeal was filed as of Thursday, that is yesterday. Now, we understand that these proceedings have been started after BharatPe sent a legal notice to Ashnir Grover seeking to claw back his shares that were vested and not that were vested in him at the time of his resignation on the 1st of March this year. Remember, he holds around 8.5% stake in BharatPe, and about 1.4% of his stake was not vested as on the date of his resignation. That is what BharatPe seeks to claw back, and also the use of the title founder. That is also something that BharatPe wants Ashnir Grover to stop using. Like I said, this is the third now legal suit against Ashnir Grover after the civil suit in the Delhi High Court and the criminal complaint at the EOW. So after a long boardroom battle, looks like they're set for a protracted legal battle as of now.
Well, that certainly seems to be the case. Ritu, many thanks for joining us. Online marketplace Snapdeal has deferred its plans to launch an IPO, according to a report by Reuters. The company has withdrawn its papers that it filed with SEBI, citing the recent volatile market conditions as the reason. Shares of Paytm surging sharply after the company informed exchanges that its board will consider a share buyback proposal on the 13th of December. Remember, the current market price of Paytm is down to 1/4 of its IPO price. The company also saw SoftBank paring some of its stake after the lock-in period ended in November. The company is yet to decide on the price and the size of the buyback, but it could give an opportunity to shareholders to exit at a better price. It was the best monthly sales for auto dealers across India. Retail sales grew 26% in November versus the same period last year. Three-wheeler segment saw the highest growth of 80%, followed by tractor segment, which grew 57%. Meanwhile, two-wheeler sales are slowly turning the tide from negative to positive on the back of festive and wedding season sales. US-based Collins Aerospace, one of the world's largest providers of aerospace systems, is betting big on India. The company has launched a new engineering and operations facility in Bengaluru. Ritu spoke with the company's president, Steve Tim, about their investment plans.
What we're doing is we're transitioning existing products today to this new location, and we'll be transitioning into the future investments of, and this is impressive, I think, $200 million of additional investment as we expand these facilities and expect to hire 2,000 new engineers on top of the 5,000 already that we have.
India is an important and large market for defense and manufacturing products. For Collins Aerospace, which is present globally, how important strategically is is India as a market for you?
We project that India will have the third largest commercial aviation market in the world near term. It has the third largest defense budget. It's part of the star alignment I talked about. So as this market grows both in commercial and defense, and you're looking for companies as the largest multinational aerospace defense supplier in India, for us it's a good match, because for us this is an opportunity to grow. So for us, the largest segment that you think about growth in commercial, third, defense, third in India. Yeah. For us, it's a great opportunity to find partnerships in both commercial and defense as we grow and aspire to do so.
Well, that is Collins Aerospace there in conversation with Ritu. That is it on this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC TV 18. Next up, our Friday special Editors Roundtable.